Hey folks, somebody just bought a massive headache. I'm going to explain that and the latest home prices and insights for Peel and Durham for week ending March the 8th, 2023. Let me tell you what I mean about buying a massive headache. I'm with my buyer client and we're looking at houses. This one house they liked. Big lot, big house, about 4,000 square feet. The home was a bit dated, so, needed a lot of renovations or a lot of updating to get it to be more modern the way they like, but they're okay with doing renovations. But as we are looking through the basement, and it's a finished basement, as we're looking through the basement, we could see, it's pretty clear, along one side and the other side. Now, one of those sides was the front of the house, along the basement on the inside, and down one side, it's a lot of mold issues. You could see it all along the baseboards, and you could see it on the drywall just above the baseboards. It was pretty clear. Dark, you couldn't miss it. If you knew nothing about mold, you would look at this and go, that's probably mold. And so we looked at that, and it still didn't scare my client away. We just needed to know, what were we dealing with here? I took a bunch of photos while we were on the showing, and afterwards I sent it to one of the contractors I know that specializes in basement and foundation repairs, and sent them the photos, and we chatted for a bit, and he said the way it looks, that it's so widespread from one side of the house and across the front, this is beyond just one or two cracks in the foundation where you could fix with injection molding from the inside. Most likely, he says, that the outside would have to be dug out and resealed and new weeping tiles. I'm not going to get into all the work that would be involved, but it was substantial and costly. And so I explained this to my client, and we were discussing it, and well, the whole front of this house was concrete work and interlock. We're thinking, oh, that's got to be removed, and there's just a lot of work. It still didn't scare my client away. So we put an offer together, and we based it on recent solds in the area of similar properties, but we backed out. We compensated for the potential foundation work that needed to be done. We backed that out of the price. Put the offer in. The agent on the other side, she calls me right away and says, "Thank you for the offer. Why is it so low?" I said, well, we're comparing it to recent properties in the area, but we're compensating for all the foundation work that needs to be done. She was a bit surprised. Her attitude was, what foundation work? So I talked to her about, it's obvious you could see the mold in the basement, and she still goes on, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll present it to the seller. Our offer went absolutely nowhere. They didn't even want to negotiate. That was dead in the water. We move on to look at other properties, but every now and then my client brings up that house. I'm also following up on that property to see what happens, and a few weeks later the listing got terminated. Now this neighborhood has a lot of properties that get terminated and then relisted at a lower price. So I'm thinking this is probably what's going to happen, and the home had been on the market for several months now. It wasn't a new listing. So I call the agent, what's happening? I see you terminated. I'm trying to get ahead of the price reduction. She says, oh no, the sellers just suspended it. They're probably going to bring it back on the market in the spring or the summer. So, okay. Well, a week later, property comes on the market again. It's basically the same price. They did reduce it, but just by a few thousand. The reduction meant absolutely nothing in the overall picture of things. So I tell my client, if the property's back on the market, their attitude is, you know what, let's go see it again. Maybe, let's look at it. Maybe we might come up a little bit in our price. So we go look at it. We're in the basement. Nothing. Everything is clean. There's no mold issues whatsoever. Thinking, oh boy, did they fix all this? But they didn't. We can tell on the outside. I mean, it's winter. Nothing's been dug up. We can tell there's been no work done from the outside. And we can tell that the baseboards on that side of the house are slightly different Then the other side of the house, so they've replaced the baseboards, they've redone the drywall, repainted it. I'm not sure what they've done, but in my head I'm thinking, are they just covering this up? So I call the agent, and her attitude is still, what mold? There was no issues. They've refreshed the house. Well, we completely backed away from that. That didn't make my client feel comfortable at all. A week or so later, the property gets sold firm for close to asking price. There was no conditions, no home inspection conditions. Some other buyer bought the house close to the asking price. They bought a massive, massive headache. They don't even know what they're getting into. And you got to wonder, the home had been on the, if any agent does any kind of history search, the home had been on the market for a long time. They're barely having any showings, you can see that. Why not put a home inspection condition? There was no pressure to not have a home inspection condition. Of course there should have been a home inspection condition. Well, that's not what happened, and so some buyer has a massive, massive headache on their hand. At the end of the day, who you hire matters. I gotta say, that agent that represented that buyer should have insisted on a home inspection condition, even if they had no intentions of doing a home inspection condition. Have it in there, get it inspected. Some work needed to be done in the house. And a home inspector, if you hire the right one, they've got tools that can point out moisture. Even though the drywall was fixed in the surface, behind there, for sure there's moisture there. That would have come up in the home inspection. If you feel this video can help somebody you know, please pass it along. If you get value from this video, subscribe. Let's get into the numbers. If you want to speak with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, we've made it really simple. Below this video in the description, there's a link to my calendar. Click on that, book a time that's convenient for you. This way I'll know ahead of time and I'll make sure my schedule's organized so we can talk about whatever's on your mind. I want to add a bit more to the story I was speaking about before the introduction. You should always be looking to work with somebody a realtor that has your best interests. For example, in the story I was talking about there, it made total sense that there should have been a home inspection condition. I know there's situations where the home inspection condition will work against you. For example, if there's multiple offers, you might consider maybe not. But then the person that's representing you, your realtor, should be talking to you about suggesting maybe we do a home inspection before we put in the offer. Or maybe we do this, or maybe we would do that, or maybe we put in a clause like this that can at least help something. The property I was speaking about earlier, though, there was no rush to buy it. There was no multiple offer. It had been on the market for a while. There was no reason there should not have been a home inspection condition. So make sure you're hiring somebody that is going to give you options and consequences on whatever decision you're making. Home inspection, not home inspection, pros and cons of having it, financing conditions, whatever the case. Make sure you're hiring somebody or working with somebody that has your best interest in mind. Let's get into the numbers. I have here for detached properties, a quick summary. Mississauga in blue, green is Brampton, and red is the Durham region. I'm pointing out here that for a while, prices, especially between Mississauga and Brampton for detached properties, have not been that far apart. But as we kind of get into February and now we're into March, the gap between Brampton detached properties, and Brampton is basically kind of stayed flat now since the beginning of February. Mississauga prices for detached have been increasing, and now you see a huge gap where there wasn't such a huge gap before. Mississauga detached properties average sold price has almost always been higher than Brampton average sold price. But the gap, the difference now, is higher than it has been in recent history. Let's start off with Mississauga. 35 detached properties were sold. 5 of those are at $2 million or more. Average sold price up a little bit from the previous week. It's now sitting at $1,485,000. 1,485 is 21% lower than where the average sold price was a year ago. Median price of 1,350 is 22% lower than where the median price was a year ago. The green dotted line is separating last year from this year. The other dotted lines going this way is a 4-week moving average for the average sold price and a 4-week moving average for the median price. And as we're into 2023 here, and as each week passes, both median and average sold price for detached properties for Mississauga, it's pretty clear prices are headed up. Homes are getting more expensive. Of the 35 that sold, 40% sold at list price or more, and the percentage selling at list price or more since the beginning of February has also, generally speaking, been increasing. 86 were listed, and months of inventory down again, sitting at 1.5 months of inventory, and they've been going down since the beginning of the year. It's down by 0.1 from the previous week in each of the areas I'm speaking about today. Here's an alert for what you're about to see. Months of inventory has gone down by 0.1 for each of the regions I'm speaking about today. So here's Brampton. 51 detached properties were sold. None of those sold at $2 million or more. Average sold price down a little bit from the previous week, sitting at $1,199,000. 1,199 is 22% lower than where the average sold price was a year ago. The median price of 1,172 is 20% lower than where the median price was a year ago. If we're looking at the previous 2 months, 3 months, median price has been increasing. Average sold price also been increasing, but not at the same pace that median price has been going up. And if we kind of focus on the last 4 weeks, both kind of seem a bit flat. Of the 51 that sold, 29% sold at list price or more. Listings, look, we listed 86 since the beginning of February, ending of January, middle of January. We listed 88, 87, 79, 80, 87. There hasn't really been much change in the amount of detached properties being listed in Brampton. Months of inventory, like I said earlier, it's down by 0.1, sitting now at 1.3 months of inventory. Here's the Durham region. Now for Durham, I'm using Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby as my Durham sample. 49 detached properties were sold. None sold at $2 million or more. Average sold price up a little bit from the previous week at $1,131,000. 1,131 is 25% lower than where the average sold price was a year ago. And the median price of $1.1 million is 24% lower than where the median price was a year ago. And if you look at the 4-week moving average, I guess the beginning of this year, both median and average look like they're sloping down. And now since beginning of February or so, kind of flat for average and median price in Durham. Of the 49 that were sold, 65% sold at list price or more. So even though prices really are not increasing, but lots of things are pointing to that they should be in Durham region. For example, 65% selling at list price or more. Prices really aren't changing that much. Listings, we listed 67, not a big change from the previous week. Months of inventory, it's like lowest for the GTA at 0.6 months of inventory. Average days on market is 14. Months of inventory this low, we would expect average prices to be higher or going up. They're just not. Here are condos for Peel region. 54 condos were sold. Sales have been going up. Average sold price down a little bit from the previous week. $592,000 is the average price of a condo sold in Peel region. Most of these condos are being bought and sold in Mississauga, but they do include all of Peel region. 592 is 19% lower than where the average sold price was a year ago. Median price of 598, so the median is slightly higher than the average price. It's 15% lower than where the median price was a year ago. And the median price is increasing through the course of this year so far. So is the average sold price, but it's kind of flat actually, the average sold price, if I really take a look at it. Of the 54 condos that sold, less than a quarter, 24% sold at list price or more. So there's lots of room when it comes to condos to negotiate a decent price, to take your time to think about it. You don't have to jump in and outbid. There are some situations, 24%, where you're probably going to have to quickly pay the price they're asking or compete. But 75% of the sales, or 76% of the sales, you don't have to pay list price or more. 91 were listed, and 1.3, down by 0.1 from the previous week. 1.3 is the months of inventory. Months of inventory have been flat for a while. The last couple of weeks they've come down aggressively. Average sold price, because of months of inventory being flat, average sold price has been kind of flat also. Here's a quick summary. Months of inventory, quite low. Balanced market would be between 6 months and 4 months. We're nowhere near a balanced market. It's pretty much a seller's market right now for so many reasons. If you're choosing to be in the market, if you're choosing to sell and you're choosing to buy, line yourself up with a realtor that's going to do whatever they can to work in your best interest and protect you. You're still going to make the choices that's best for you and your family, but at least somebody should put on the table in front of you the options or consequences of some of the decisions that perhaps you're thinking of making. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.